الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, today we will go through the story of Nuh alayhi salam. In last class, we went through the story of Nuh alayhi salam very briefly. Today we'll mention a little bit more details about the story of Nuh alayhi salam. So Nuh alayhi salam, as we know from the Quran, his story is covered extensively. It is mentioned in more than one surah, and there's actually one entire chapter of the Quran that is named after Nuh alayhi salam. And the message that Nuh alayhi salam came with was the same message that all the prophets before him and after him came with. And that is summarized in the statement where Allah Azza wa Jalla says that Nuh alayhi salam said to his people, أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاتَّقُوهُ وَأَطِيعُونَ. He said, fear Allah, and he said, worship Allah alone, وَاتَّقُوهُ, and have taqwa of Him, and وَأَطِيعُونَ, and obey me, follow me. In other words, this is the kalima, this is the shahada, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, and in place of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would be that messenger at that time. So he is telling the people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to obey Him. Now the obedience of the prophets alayhi salam, they are obeyed because they are the ones that are receiving the wahi, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jalla said in another surah in the Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا لِيُطَاعَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And we have not sent a messenger except that that messenger is supposed to be obeyed, supposed to be followed بِإِذْنِ with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So subhanAllah, this is very strong evidence against those people who reject the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you remember last week's class, we mentioned a few points of people who reject hadith, and this again shows the importance of following the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Azza wa Jalla Himself is saying in the Quran that every single prophet or messenger that was sent in order to be followed. Now, how can you follow the prophet, whether it is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or any other prophet, if you reject all the statements that he came with? If you reject the whole notion of traditions being passed on through the generations. So the scholars in Islam, they use this along with many other evidence throughout the Quran that shows the importance of following the prophet that came with the message. And the scholars in Islam, they say if Allah Azza wa Jalla had wanted to, He would have sent down the Quran without any messenger. Nothing is difficult for Allah. But the hikmah, the wisdom was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down with every message a messenger. With every message a messenger or a prophet in order to teach the people, to make them understand. And we, in last week's class, we sort of mentioned a little bit about the struggles and the difficulties that Nuh alayhi salam went through. It is mentioned in the Quran that Nuh alayhi salam spent with his people 1,000 years except 50. In other words, 950 years. He spent 950 years calling his people. And it is mentioned in some traditions that Nuh alayhi salam, he was given long life, and the people were so objecting towards his message, that they were so against Nuh alayhi salam, that fathers would give advice to their children, telling them, teaching them that when I pass away, make sure you stay away from Nuh alayhi salam. And then the next generation would pass on that information and would say to each other, if I pass away, then make sure that you stay away from Nuh alayhi salam. This is how severe it became. And Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us about this in the Quran. But in those traditions, it mentions that this was the practice amongst the people at that time. Not only that, but the elders in the community would make fun of Nuh alayhi salam, and the young ones, the youth, the children, they would actually beat up Nuh alayhi salam. In some narrations, it mentions that they would beat him up to such an extent that he would faint, that he would pass away. But nothing would stop Nuh alayhi salam in calling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this surah that is named after Nuh alayhi salam, Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us a little bit about the struggles that Nuh alayhi salam faced. Allah says, قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. That Nuh alayhi salam is calling out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this shows the way that the messengers of Allah, the prophets of Allah alayhi salam, would always handle a difficult situation. There was no need for a psychologist. There was no need to mention your problems left, right, and center. Again, this is not to take away, because sometimes in Islam it does help to mention your problems to someone that can help, someone that can make things easier for you to handle. So that is something that Islam accepts. But at the same time, there should always be that return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost, all the time. Even if a person is seeking professional help, they should never forget to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Nuh alayhi salam, he calls out to Allah and he mentions to Allah his struggles. And he says, رَبِّ إِنِّي دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. He says, oh my Lord, I have called these people, or my people rather, قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. Night and day. You know, when we try to give da'wah, or when we have a responsibility, right? We have times that we work when we're active in the da'wah, and then we have times where we take time out for ourselves. And if we compare this to the prophets alayhimus salam, their job was non-stop, 24/7. Nuh alayhi salam is not only calling towards Allah during the day, but he is also calling to Allah during the night. Because sometimes you find a group of people, they're awake and they're busy during the day. And you'll find another group of people, they're awake and busy during the night. And Nuh alayhi salam, because of the importance of the message, he tried his best to utilize his time in such a way that he could give da'wah both during the day and during the night. And not only that, but Nuh alayhi salam, in the following verses it says, فَلَمْ يَزِدْهُمْ دُعَائِي إِلَّا فِرَارًا. That my calling, my da'wah, me calling them to Islam, only increased them in distance. The more I called them to Islam, towards the religion, the more they ran away from me. SubhanAllah, imagine you find yourself in that position. That you call people to something that will save them, but yet they turn away. And his da'wah is actually making the situation worse. It's making the situation more difficult. And then he says, وَإِنِّي كُلَّمَا دَعَوْتُهُمْ لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ. He's making, we understand the purpose of why he's calling the people. He's not calling them in order for them to elect him king. He's not calling them in order for them to give him money. No. The only reason he says لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ. So that you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may forgive them. And this is the key. This is the key to why Nuh alayhi salam keeps going at it. Because if you do something for yourself, when people disrespect you, when they speak ill of you, and they belittle you, if you're doing it for your own sake, then you'll get fed up, you'll get tired. If you're doing it to be praised, if you're doing it for any other reason, you'll get tired and you'll give up. But if you're doing it for the sake of Allah, then regardless of if people speak ill of you, regardless if people backbite you, you're just one piece of the puzzle. And this is what Nuh alayhi salam understood. That the prophets before him, people opposed them. And definitely the messengers and prophets that would come after him, people would oppose them. But again, once you distance yourself, once you realize that you are just one part of the bigger picture, one puzzle, then it doesn't matter to you if people disrespect you. It doesn't matter to you if people speak bad about you behind your back. And you follow the sunnah of Nuh alayhi salam and all the other prophets alayhi salam. So the only reason he is calling them day and night is for that one purpose. لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ, so that Allah Azza wa Jal might forgive them. And even then they're running away. And he says, جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ وَأَصَرُّوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا. That these people, not only do they run away from the da'wah, but they put their fingers in their ears. And some scholars, they mention the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal refers to this as جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ, their fingers. When in reality, you only put your finger, the top part of your fingers in your ears. You can't push it all the way in. But the scholars in Islam, they say this is mubalagha. It is one way for Allah Azza wa Jal to get across to us, to show us how much they refused in believing in Nuh alayhi salam. It is as if they put their whole fingers inside their ears and they didn't want to listen to Nuh alayhi salam. Not only that, وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ, and they would cover themselves with their clothing. Some scholars say when they would see Nuh alayhi salam walking on the street, they would try to cover themselves. You know how sometimes when you walk on the street and you see a person and you don't really want to have a conversation with that person, and you look away and you think to yourself, I hope this person doesn't see me. This was the attitude that they had to Nuh alayhi salam. That when they saw him coming from far away, they would cover themselves up, just so they don't have to listen to Nuh alayhi salam's message. وَأَصَرُّوا, and they kept at that. Every time he would speak to them, they would come with this sort of behavior. وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا. Not only that, but they came with a mighty pride. They would make fun of Nuh alayhi salam every chance they got. And they would abuse him both mentally and physically. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla says, ثُمَّ إِنِّي دَعَوْتُهُمْ جِهَارًا, about Nuh alayhi salam. He's calling out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, telling us about his efforts. And he says, I call them jihara, openly. The scholars in Islam, they say, Nuh alayhi salam, he would take the opportunities that were given to him. He would go to them when they would have their parties, when they would have their festivals. And he would remind them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the message. And again, imagine they already dislike Nuh alayhi salam. And now Nuh alayhi salam is showing up at their big gatherings. But that didn't stop him. And he carried on. ثُمَّ إِنِّي أَعْلَمْتُ لَهُمْ وَأَسْرَرْتُ لَهُمْ إِسْرَارًا. And he would call them both in the open. He would speak openly and give advice to people. And وَأَسْرَرْتُ لَهُمْ إِسْرَارًا. The scholars in Tafsir, they say this means he would go to people, because Nuh alayhi salam was such a known figure in the community. People would look down upon him, right? And when people go around and speak bad about someone, they used to say to Nuh alayhi salam, Majnoonun wasdujir, that he was Majnoon, and they would try to push him as far away as possible. Now imagine you have such a person, individual in your community, right? Would you willingly associate yourself with that person? No. Because if you associate yourself with that person, you run the risk of people saying, well, this person is like that person. Even if you know that everything that is being said about the person is lies, that people are just making up lies about them, even then you would be cautious. So Nuh alayhi salam here is saying that he would go and give da'wah in a way where even to those people who might want to listen to Nuh alayhi salam, he would cover their secrets. He would go to them at night. And he would give them that da'wah. So they wouldn't have to run the risk of being associated with him. The only thing that mattered to him was conveying that message of Tawheed, making them believe. And then he says, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. Now Nuh alayhi salam is actually mentioning to us the words, the teaching, the ilm, the maw'idah, the reminder that he would give people. So this is a prophet, a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is showing us how he gave da'wah. It is the best example. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said that Nuh alayhi salam said, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. I told these people, make istighfar. And istighfar is a topic by itself. People today, they take it lightly. You see people saying astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, and their mind is somewhere else. When in reality, istighfar has conditions, it has things that are needed to be fulfilled in order for that istighfar to be accepted. So he's reminding the people, come with that istighfar. And who should you seek forgiveness from? Rabbakum. And the choice of word Rabbakum, the scholars in Islam, they mention this is the best place for it. Because the one that you're transgressing, the one that you're committing sins against, is your Rabb, is your Lord. And Allah Azza wa Jalla will hold every person accountable for their mistakes. And at the same time, Nuh alayhi salam reminds people not to give up hope. When you say, Istaghfiru Rabbakum, there's a bit of fear in that. Seek forgiveness from your Lord, because you went against Him. You committed sins. And every single person commits sins. But then He gives them hope. إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. That Allah Azza wa Jalla is Ghaffar. And the scholars in Islam, again, they say this is one way in the Arabic language, Fa'al, Ghaffar, it shows that Allah Azza wa Jal does not only forgive a few times, but Allah Azza wa Jal forgives again and again and again, and Allah Azza wa Jal loves to forgive. So this is the way that Nuh alayhi salam is calling his people. And then he says, and the scholars in Islam, they call these following verses the thamarat of istighfar, the fruits of seeking forgiveness. Nuh alayhi salam says, يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا, that Allah Azza wa Jal will send on you rain from the heavens. This is the tafsir, the translation that most scholars say. And this is perhaps the most correct translation of the word. يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا, that Allah Azza wa Jal will send down rain from the heavens. But if you notice, there's more to it in the verse. Allah Azza wa Jal says, يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا. There is no mention of rain. Rain is understood, but the literal translation is that Allah Azza wa Jal will send the heavens. يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا. So some of the scholars in Islam, they've said that because of this verse and many other verses in the Quran, it shows us that if a person comes with istighfar, seeking forgiveness for sins and shortcomings, then not only will rain come down, but everything else that a person wants. And through istighfar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up the heavens. Not only opens up the heavens, but the heavens are sent down to you. Blessings, barakat. So Nuh alayhi salam is reminding the people that this istighfar, this religion that I'm bringing to you, it's not to benefit me, it is not to benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is to benefit you. If you come with it, Allah Azza wa Jal will give you all these things and much more. And then he says, وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ جَنَّاتٍ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ أَنْهَارًا. That Allah Azza wa Jal will increase to you. Some scholars they say increase your life. Some scholars they say increase the joy when it comes to money, wealth. And Allah Azza wa Jal said He will increase your joy, your life when it comes to the amwal, with wealth. Not just mal, but amwal, jam' of mal. So it shows that Allah Azza wa Jal will give a lot of wealth to the person who comes with istighfar. This is a promise. Not only that, Allah Azza wa Jal will increase the person with baneen, children. And in other places in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal tells us that the two most beloved things to people, what Allah Azza wa Jal has made beloved to mankind, is money, yani wealth, and children. And Allah Azza wa Jal goes even more than that, and He says He will give you jannat. Not just one garden, but gardens. Jannatin. وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ أَنْهَارًا. And Allah Azza wa Jal will give you rivers. Not one river, but rivers, anhar. So again, this shows us, subhanAllah, that if a person follows the religion the way that the religion is supposed to be followed, then Allah Azza wa Jal has made a promise for that person, both in this world and in the hereafter. And nothing is difficult for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Nuh alayhi salam, he kept calling his people, for 950 years, and the response that he got, Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran, وَمَا آمَنَ مَعَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. And the only people that believed in Nuh alayhi salam in the end were only a few. The number that scholars quote is anything between 7 people believing in Nuh alayhi salam up to 80 people believing in Nuh. Imagine 950 years. 80 people believing in Nuh alayhi salam. And this shows us a lesson that when it comes to giving da'wah, it's something that makes us happy when someone accepts Islam. But we always remind ourselves that the true guidance belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whether a person is giving da'wah and no one listens to him, doesn't make a difference. Doesn't mean that the person is a failure. Some people, they might boast and they say, Alhamdulillah, I helped make 100 people Muslims, or 1,000 people, or 5,000. Alhamdulillah, that is all well and good. But we need to remember that that is not the criterion, it is not what really matters. Allah Azza wa Jal gave us a responsibility to convey. As long as the person is conveying and doing their part, and again, da'wah comes in many different forms. People, they think da'wah, that you have to stand up like Nuh alayhi salam and speak. No, today we have so many different ways of giving da'wah. A person might not be eloquent. They might not want to speak in front of people. Other people, they might not have the knowledge. You speak a little bit, a person asks a question. Why do women have to wear hijab? All of a sudden, you don't know what to say. You don't know how to explain it. So, when it comes to da'wah, there's many different ways. If you're not good at speaking, perhaps you're good at writing. If you're not good at writing, perhaps you can help the da'wah in providing the materials, helping the person that is giving the da'wah, and so on. What I'm trying to get across is there's many ways of helping the da'wah, and this should be the concern of every single Muslim. Nuh alayhi salam, he was calling his people, and only about a number between 7 people up to the highest number being 80 believed in him. Not only that, but in some narrations, his own wife didn't believe in him. His own wife didn't believe in him. And in the Quran, we are told that his son, one of his sons, didn't believe in him. So subhanAllah, this shows that point even so much clearer. That at the end of the day, that guidance doesn't belong to us. Sometimes certain parents, they come to me and they say, Shaykh, my son or my daughter, they do this and that. And I try my best, I speak to them, I give them advice. Is there any sin on me? And the answer to that question is, the only thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires from you is to come with that effort. Whether you're able to help guide that person, whether it is your own child or your father, your mother, your friend, that lies in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Nuh alayhi salam, people were making fun of him. Allah Azza wa Jal gave him the instructions of building the big boats. And up until this moment in time, Nuh alayhi salam has been patient with the people. And even afterwards, Nuh alayhi salam is patient. And Allah Azza wa Jalla sends down wahi, revelation to Nuh alayhi salam, telling him that after this, no one will believe in the infinite knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is at that moment in time that Allah Azza wa Jalla gives instructions to Nuh alayhi salam to build the boat, the ark. So Nuh alayhi salam builds it, and the people, they keep making fun of him. And then when the time comes, Nuh alayhi salam and those few people that believed in him, and with the animals that Allah Azza wa Jalla instructed him to take with, they all climb on top of the boat, or inside the boat. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, instructs Nuh alayhi salam to start with Bismillah. And that is an act to show the tawakkul, the reliance that Nuh alayhi salam has on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran, وَهِيَ تَجْرِي بِهِمْ فِي الْمَوْجِ كَالْجِبَالِ. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says that this boat was traveling on the seas, and it encountered waves the size of mountains. Imagine this ship. It's not made out of steel. It's not made out of, these hard materials. It's made out of wood. Simple things. And yet it encounters mountains, the waves the size of mountains. But Nuh alayhi salam and the people with him, they survived. Why? It's not because the boat is built in a special way. It's because Allah Azza wa Jalla is the one that is protecting Nuh. And the boat is only a means. When it comes to tawakkul, you have to come with the means. The Prophet ﷺ was asked once, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, shall I tie my camel and place my trust in Allah, or should I leave it and place my trust in Allah? The Prophet ﷺ told the man, tie your camel and then place your trust in Allah. Meaning that in Islam you need to come with the necessary precautions and measures. If Allah Azza wa Jalla wanted to, He could have created a bubble or something that saved Nuh alayhi salam and his family. But it is in order to teach mankind that there's certain measures that needs to be done. So Allah Azza wa Jalla was protecting Nuh alayhi salam and the believers. And it was at that moment in time that Nuh alayhi salam called out when he saw his son. And he said, "Oh my son, irkab ma'ana, come with us. Climb on to the boat." And the son refused. And he said, "Sa'awi ila jabalin, I will seek protection in the mountain, on the mountain. Ya'asimuni min al-ma, it will protect me from the water." So subhanAllah, you see how sometimes what seems to be logical, if it's not the way that Allah Azza wa Jalla wants it to be, it won't help. And Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran, فَكَانَ مِنَ الْمُغْرَقِينَ, that he was from amongst those people who drowned. He passed away in that state. That mountain didn't save him. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want to save him. So this is the story of Nuh alayhi salam. Towards the end, we find out that the boat finds rest on a mountain that in the Quran is referred to as al-Judi, and that is where Nuh alayhi salam and the people got off the boat. And we don't know much about what happened after that part in the story, up until hadith from the Prophet ﷺ that tells us that when Nuh alayhi salam was about to die, he called his children. And I'm sure we all recognize this. Almost every single prophet that had the opportunity on their deathbed, they wouldn't talk about inheritance, they wouldn't talk about these kind of matters. They would talk about the ibadah. Who are these people, the children? Who are they going to worship? So Nuh alayhi salam brought his children and he gave them advice, and from amongst that advice was he told them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and to not associate any partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on top of that, Nuh alayhi salam warned his children against pride. And that is the end of the story of Nuh alayhi salam, to the best of my knowledge.